India's biggest slum sold again. The Dharavi township in the heart of Mumbai is in for a $2.4 billion redevelopment by the Adani Group. But with the Indian conglomerate accused of fraud and residents saying they haven't been consulted, is the project dead in the water before it's even begun? I'm Melinda Nusafora, and this is The Newsmakers. In the heart of India's financial capital, Mumbai, more than 1 million people live in a slum. Dharavi, made famous in the blockbuster film Slumdog Millionaire, is sandwiched between modern skyscrapers and the international airport. It has a vibrant economy and dynamic social life, but it also has poor sanitation, water pollution, and crumbling or non-existent infrastructure. Now, Indian billionaire Gautam Adani has won the right to develop the slum, a plan that's attracted praise and reproach in equal measure.
Tearing down and developing Dharavi slum is a formidable task with an estimated price tag of $2.4 billion.
That will be one of the biggest urban renewal project, one of the biggest project that will change the face of entire Mumbai.
According to the plan, the families that settled in Dharavi before 2000 will be relocated to new flats. But that's only around 30% of the current population. Thousands of others will be offered public rental apartments within a 10-kilometre radius. The government is also offering a 5-year tax exemption for small businesses that currently operate from Dharavi. Once the resettlement is done, developer Adani will build residential and commercial complexes in the area and sell them on the open market. The government is hoping that this will put downward pressure on the housing prices in the overpopulated Mumbai. But not everyone supports the plan.
They transformed a swamp on the periphery of the city into habitable land and produced an industrial and residential economy that provides homes and jobs to millions. Why should this be siphoned away by a company that has done absolutely nothing to make it what it's worth?
Residents are particularly concerned for their businesses. Dharavi's economy is worth over $1 billion. It has a thriving manufacturing sector producing pottery, textiles and leather, and a large recycling industry. For many families, work and home are not strictly divided, and many fear the new apartments will be unsuitable for their business activities.
I've been here since my birth for 45 years. Think about how old could my house be. But I'm scared that in the coming days I will be thrown out of my home. We are the people of Dharavi. The first thing they should do is make arrangements for us here.
The government should give us equivalent space to us as per our ownership here. They should not take our space. If they want to profit from the redevelopment, then we have no problem. But we want our equivalent space in the current marketplace.
Since 2003, several development plans have failed due to relocation problems or just the sheer scale of the project. And some believe it's no more than a hollow campaign promise, as municipal elections are just around the corner.
They just say the building will be built, but when? I've been hearing this since the time I got married, but nothing has been done so far.
But the latest plan is different. The government has a 20% stake in the project, and developer Gautam Adani is a close ally of the ruling BJP. Adani is no stranger to controversy. His poor construction in Kerala state has prompted months of protests, and residents are resisting a coal mine plan he is leading in Jharkhand. Most recently, allegations of fraud have been leveled against him. This month, US investment firm Hindenburg Research accused Adani of stock manipulation and accounting fraud. As a result, his firm has lost $50 billion.
This is not merely an unwarranted attack on any specific company, but a calculated attack on India, the independence, integrity and quality of Indian institutions, and the growth story and ambition of India.
It's not clear yet how these troubles will affect the Dharavi redevelopment project, but the Maharashtra Congress has asked the government to take the project away from the Adani Group. As the government tries to create a slum-free Mumbai, without local consultation, it risks destroying a unique social texture and a thriving economy, and replacing it with a whole new set of problems.
To discuss these problems and more, I'm joined by the Mumbai president of the Aadmi party, Preeti Sharma Menon. Also from Mumbai is Krishna Pujari. He's the founder of Reality Tours and Travel, which runs guided tours and youth empowerment programs in the Dharavi slum. And from Geneva is Matias Echanove, an urbanologist and co-founder of Urbz, a research collective working on urban development in Mumbai. Thank you all for joining us here on The Newsmakers. Preeti, I want to start with you. You've called this project a scam, but surely providing these people with some modern apartments, with proper sanitation, can only be a good thing.
No, absolutely. There is a huge need in Mumbai to rehouse the people who live in slums. 65% of Mumbai's population lives in slums in pitiful conditions, in very poor sanitation. So it is a very critical task. But the whole intrinsic problem lies with having a private developer redevelop these slums into residential and commercial establishments, which are not meant for these slum dwellers, but are meant for actually selling. So that whole concept is flawed. They're going to take the land that Dharavi occupies, and which is completely the center of Mumbai. It's the heart of Mumbai, and we're talking about 520 acres of land. That's a huge land parcel in the center of Mumbai. What they're going to do is they're going to take the population of Dharavi, which is barely 10 lakh people, and move them into vertical jails. Because if you see any slum rehabilitation project in Mumbai, they put up the poor people in rooms as small as 300 square feet in buildings that are 10 stories, 15 stories, 15 floor high. And in buildings where the facilities are so poor that very soon the elevators stop working, the water pumps stop working. So people are literally living in a vertical jail. The slum at least has some ecosystem, some common spaces, some open ground, some temples, religious places. In a vertical kind of building which they trap them in, they have nothing, no access to any open place, no access to public areas. They're going to trap them in these areas, and the rest of the land, which is a scam, is going to be used to make commercial establishments and sell them. Such a massive project. Why can't the government do it themselves?
Krishna, what do you say to that? Preeti's describing these new apartments as vertical jails. From the people you've spoken to during your work in the Dharavi area, what do they think? Are they keen on these new apartments, or do they agree with Preeti?
Okay, see, of course, I agree with Preeti. What are the previous plans, especially slum rehabilitation project. But now what they say is Dharavi Redevelopment plan is different than slum rehabilitation project. So at the moment, what I can say is, first of all, we don't know yet what exactly the new plan will look like. They're saying they're going to declare the new project, in next like 6 months. So basically, we don't know exactly the project will look like, but at the moment we are just worried about those people who have their livelihood in Dharavi.
This has been going on for decades though, and now you say there's another 6 months to wait for an actual plan. Is this sort of uncertainty really taking its toll?
Exactly. So at the moment, it's very uncertain, what will be the project look like. So we are basically waiting, to see the project and then to react. So at the moment, yes, people are worried. What about their businesses? What about their work there? How big house they will get? So basically, there are people who live on the first floor, and the lower floors they have their factories or godowns. So what about those?
I'm definitely going to get to that point in just a moment, because that's such an interesting one. But before we get there, Matias, I want to ask you, during your work as an urbanologist, to your knowledge, has a slum redevelopment anywhere globally ever been successful? Is there a blueprint that they should be following?
I think what's really fascinating about Dharavi is that it has been developing all over the years. It has been developing incrementally. So it's not a kind of status quo situation in which you just have a slum. You have a neighborhood which is trying to come out of the slum, and people are really working very hard at it. And we have examples in other parts of Mumbai, but also large examples in other parts of the world where incremental development has succeeded in creating excellent neighborhoods. And the case of Tokyo is very interesting, where there was very few redevelopment projects in the post-war era, and then the city has developed to become one of the most interesting, intricate, and vibrant city in the world. So it is possible to develop a neighborhood from within. And in fact, this is exactly what has been happening for generations in Dharavi.
So to your mind, when you look at the proposal that Adani Realty has put forward, what's your take on it? When you look at it on the face value, do you think it's going to work?
So there's no proposal as of yet. They just been awarded the bid, so now they are going to be working on it. I'm sure they're full of good intentions, but it's a very difficult start of the project when the premise itself is that it needs to be redeveloped, meaning it needs to be cleared, and then you need to come up with a new high-rise structures to rehabilitate people. We've been working in Dharavi for the past 12 years. We have an office over there, and we have come to the conclusion that, in fact, redevelopment projects of that type become very detrimental to the local economy, to the communities that live there for generations, and that we must come with new models and look at the past, but also look at the future for different ways of integrating such neighborhoods in the city.
Preeti, Adani Realty didn't respond to our offer to have them on this show. So let me play devil's advocate here on their behalf and say that the people who live in Dharavi don't own this land. So what rights do they have to claim that they should be able to stay?
Right. So the reason why people in Mumbai live in slums is because we are paying them very poorly. If we paid fair wages, people would be able to afford housing, which is being provided commercially. But we are paying low wages to the masses. 65% of Mumbai's population is in slums. Dharavi is not the only case. And we are not giving them affordable housing. Now, affordable housing is a responsibility of the government. The government cannot outsource this to a private player, Adani or whoever it may be. When we talk about examples like Singapore, or even if you go back in history and see the examples of New York, it is the government that provided council housing. So the government has to rehouse these people and open up the spaces for common use. The other gentleman on the panel put out a very important point. Dharavi is not just a residential complex. It is an industrial zone. There are millions of small-scale industries that thrive and work out of every house, every room in Dharavi. You have the leather industry, you have the pottery industry, we have the food industry, and these industries are not limited to the rooms. They use the open spaces as well. There is no mention, either by the government or by Adani, on what's going to happen to these industries which provide livelihood to number of Mumbaikars, not just those living in Dharavi, but people coming from all over the city. The pottery industry it's the center, the heart of the pottery industry is in Dharavi. The leather industry, food industry. If you go to Mumbai and you want a quick snack anywhere, you will eat a very popular dish called idli. Most of them are made in Dharavi. So the common people who eat that snack every morning for breakfast are going to be deprived of that snack if Dharavi industry stops. So there are lots of ramifications about the industries in Dharavi, which nobody is talking about. What I'm basically against is privatization of any development. It's not just about Adani. It's about anybody. Why should the government not do this themselves? How much does the government need to do to provide 1 million housing stock? It's not so much of an effort. They can then hive off a little bit of the land for commercial purposes and use the rest of the land to make a small-scale industrial hub over there. There's also one more very important thing. Mahim Nature Park, also known as Maharashtra Nature Park, is in the middle of Dharavi. And I'm very worried that they are going to destroy this biodiversity center because it links Dharavi to the very, very expensive premium BKC area. And right in the middle of PKC and Dharavi is the Maharashtra Nature Park. It is a center of biodiversity. It is where our Mithi River meets the sea. It's a very, very critical area for Mumbai's survival, considering that we keep flooding all the time. That's also up for grabs in this redevelopment. Government land is up for grabs in this redevelopment. It's a very thoughtless plan. Dharavi needs to be redeveloped, and it's the government's responsibility, and they should do it. Outsourcing it to private players, and you know how corruption is endemic in India. I won't mince any words about it. Every single SRA project that has taken place has been accused of corruption. The people who genuinely are supposed to be given the homes are not given the homes.
I'm going to get to that issue of corruption as well. I think that's a really interesting one. But before we come to it, let's address this huge kind of industrial base that Dharavi is. And Krishna, I want to put it to you. I've actually visited Dharavi on one of your tours, actually, and seen firsthand how much of a thriving economy this area is. What kind of discussion has been made with people about how they incorporate their businesses? I mean, for example, we heard Preeti talking about the pottery industry. I mean, from what I saw, they use a lot of that open area to dry, you know, a lot of their pots after they've been painted and fired. What happens to these people? Will they get any compensation?
You see, at the moment, you know, we, as I said, you know, like we don't know what exactly the plan is, right? But at some point, you know, they said they will be given GST free, you know, so certain years. But the thing is here, so these are the small scale industries, you know, so most of these industries are not even eligible for the GST. So they are, for example, the pottery, you know, which Preeti was talking about, right? So it's a cottage industry, you know. They, of course, using, you know, the space there for their kiln, you know, to dry the pots. So now the question is, what about their industry? You see, development is, you know, I mean, always good thing, right? For example, of course, if there are issues, you know, development should happen. Now the question is, when there are development happens, if people are not afford to live there, they cannot live there, what kind of development it is, right? So for me and for us, you know, I'm talking as behalf of Dharavi here, you know, working in Dharavi since 17 years. So for me, this is not a plan to solve the problem. There are two things, right? There are difference between solving the problem and moving the problem, right? So from a baby's taking its food and giving you know, them a toy to play will not work. Taking the people's employment, their job, their livelihood, and, you know, promising them a house, definitely it will not work, you know. And as you know, the more than 50% of the people of Dharavi will be jobless and will be homeless, you know. So what about them? So
but if these people don't actually own the land that they're living on, if they are going to be given ownership of a property for themselves, is that not a good thing?
They have already the ownership of the property. You know, these people have, you know, created the land there. They made the Dharavi, you know, useful at the moment. They have created the land. They live there from generation. You know, though they're saying, of course, it's not a free house. Why? They're taking their existing house and giving, you know, telling them that we will give you a house.
Matias, I want to ask you, programs like this, and Preeti alluded to it, you can imagine would have a very high risk of bribery and corruption. Who decides which families go to the top of the list for a new home? Who decides who misses out? Is that a concern in a development like this that isn't run by the government, it's tendered out to a private company?
I would say that even in the best situation, the complexity of such a project is such that there is no doubt that there could be many moments of like problematic aspects to the project as it unfolds. For example, you could have been living for you know, more than 10 years, 15 years in a flat, and you are a renter. The owner may be living somewhere else, but he will do everything he can to claim ownership of the new flat that will be built. So to solve those situations, it's going to be very tricky, and also it's going to create a lot of division within the neighborhood itself. Those who are eligible, those who are not eligible, and we know that the eligible resident will be like a minority. So there'll be like a big rush to be trying to get papers in one way or the other. All of that, of course, is going to be very complicated. This is why we're saying that whoever lives there now should be part of the project, should be rehabilitated, and that would be a very strong statement, a very good departure point, and that would also make sure that there is less suffering in the process, because this is what we're most concerned about, is the human suffering behind such a huge project, and also the loss to the city as a whole. I think this has been said, and it's really, really important to understand that it's not just an autonomous settlement living on its own. It's really an integral part of Mumbai's economy, Mumbai's ethos, and Mumbai's identity. And in fact, from an international perspective, I think it's a place that Mumbai should be very proud of. It really represents the entrepreneurial spirit of many generations of migrants to the city who've actually made it for themselves, who build homes, who build businesses. This is quite special. There's not so many cities which have this at the heart as their beating heart, and I think this is something that we should really value a lot.
Preeti, if the government has already granted this tender to Adani Realty, what choice is there now? What recourse is there for the people of Dharavi?
I think that such a big project will involve people participation. And if the people refuse to participate and don't accept the project, they really can't take it off. Like the gentleman just spoke, you don't know who's eligible and who's not. We're talking about 1 million homes over there, 1 million people living there, and I don't know how many homes. And they've said that 2011 or 2000, whatever will be the cutoff date, they can't do that. They have to accommodate every person who's living there presently. How will they do the paperwork? The project is so complex. If people stand up together, there is no way they can execute it. So if the government really has the intention of not just, if basically what the government is more interested in doing is changing land use, immediately making it available for luxurious condos and business district. They're not interested in rehabilitating 1 million people. And that's what should have been the focus. If that was the focus, people would participate in it. So I see the problem that, the program will run aground. There's no way they can take it off because there's so many people, so many factors, so many homes that with a private player in place, there's going to be litigation every day. Everyone is going to be running to the court saying, I have a home and I've been denied it. So it's going to be an endless nightmare. These kind of projects have to be executed by the government by giving fair homes, by creating industrial areas, by creating public spaces, and then using if there is extra land available for commercial purposes from which the government can earn some revenue to do this development. But today what is being done is nightmarish. Environmentally it is scary. For people, from the people perspective, it's scary. From the business and employment perspective, it's scary. So the project is really an unthought of project in an unprecedented haste to grant it to Adani. So one obviously feels that there is something at work here. What was this haste? Without knowing what the project is, without declaring to the people what you're going to do, what is your plan for the businesses? What is your plan for transport?
We're running out of time, but I just want to throw one last question to you, Krishna. I just want to ask, you can relocate people's homes, but how do you relocate the social fabric that, someone like me has seen firsthand in a community like Dharavi? How do you relocate that?
People, Dharavi is a place with a lot of sense of community, right? So for me, like how you will relocate the sense of community, right? So what I would say, right, is, okay, because they are planning, they still, we are waiting for the plan. So they should meet a lot of community members and come up with the project, proper plan, which the people, can agree, okay? And then they can come up with a plan. So this is, this is as Preeti said, it's very, very, complex issue. right? It is happening since 2004. It's not like, yesterday or day before yesterday, right? So the community should come together and then they should agree. They should do more research about what community need, so which never happened, either before or even now, right? So we just have to see what will happen,
And perhaps we will be addressing it with all three of you in the future when we do see that proposal from Adani Realty. I thank you all for your time here on The Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to you for watching. You can follow us on Twitter and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Melinda Nusafora. We'll see you next time.